Welcome to the best subject in the world, Hinduism.
Today we have a little help from my son. He's 5, his name is Miles, and he says hi.
Hi my lad, hi.
Today I've done some cool pictures to go on these slides.
Atman, Samsara, Moksha, Brahman, Polytheism, Animism, monotheism.
Atman in Hinduism is the idea of the soul, which is entrapped in the body, and the body is breakable, it's fragile, it's impermanent, it doesn't last forever, but the soul is, like it says on the slide there, it's eternal, it lasts forever. It's individual, like it's yours. There is a distinct end between mine and yours. This analogy of the bottle actually comes from Pythagoras, who's an ancient Greek, and the idea is also seen in Plato, but this works as a pretty good analogy for the Hindu idea of the soul, where the Atman is trapped in the physical body, in the corporeal physical self, and then at death the bottle breaks, the body dies, and the soul is released.
Well, will I break if I'm dead? Yeah, can I be called Milo again when I'm died?
Okay, in this picture, we're going to start from the picture of the baby on the right there. You get born into the world, your Atman is in you, that's your soul, is part of you when you're a baby, and then down to the bottom there, you live your life and you grow up and you do good deeds and bad deeds and carry on through your life. After your life is ended and you die, we're on the picture on the left now, at death, your karma dictates what happens next to your Atman. So this is a bit like when you're in the supermarket. So you can think about all of the good things that you could buy walking around the supermarket.
Apples, bananas and pineapples and pears and fruit and vegetables.
And then once you get to the checkout, you have to cash in whether you've bought good things or
loads of crisps.
Once you hit the checkout at the end of life, that determines, you cash in all of your karma, and that determines your next rebirth, your next reincarnation. So in Hinduism, the self, the Atman, that individual self, and that's born and lives and dies and then is reborn and lives and dies, and this cycle goes on and on and on, seemingly forever, rather than in Christianity and in Abrahamic religions, which is more linear, you birth, life, death, and then an afterlife. In Hinduism, you go round and round in a cycle, and this cycle is struggling and suffering, it's difficult, it's a test, it's soul forming, so your Atman becomes better or worse formed based on the life that you lead. Life is a test of how good you can be. So for a Hindu, the idea is that you live as good a moral life as you can live. Now what that's interpreted to be specifically depends a lot on your culture and where you're from, but generally speaking, if you live a good life and you do good moral deeds and you're good to people and good to nature, then eventually you will achieve moksha.
Yeah, because if I have to carry all that crisps in my tummy, when I die, I'll go all the way around again. If I ate some quavers if I am a baby, then I'll be so bad. Then if I ate quavers, then I'll just die again. And if I ate quavers again, then I'll die again. Yeah, but when all of the blood is died, I'll grow even stronger blood, which will help me to run even faster. I might be a dragon.
Moksha means liberation, it means release from samsara, it means freedom from suffering and from evil, freedom from that struggle of samsara that seemingly was endless. Now moksha is really interesting because in your general Western religions, at the end of life your individuality is retained and you become yourself. Now, with moksha, when you achieve moksha, it's entirely the opposite. You find yourself in the realization that there wasn't really a single self to begin with. And this is what enlightenment means. In Hinduism, this individual self has been passed in its entirety from body to body through this cycle of samsara and reincarnation over and over again. But then, once you've lived the best moral life, whatever constitutes that, the best moral life that you can lead, eventually your Atman is released from the cycle of samsara and you achieve moksha. So a doll that's made of salt wanders towards the ocean, and the doll's been struggling and suffering and wants to find itself. It doesn't know who it is, and it looks to the ocean and says, I don't understand what I am, and now I don't understand what you are. And the ocean says, come closer, because I will teach you. So the salt doll wanders closer and really carefully, is a little bit scared, just dips a toe in the ocean, and the toe dissolves and disappears. And the ocean says, come in and I'll teach you who you are. So the salt doll walks into the water, and as the salt doll dissolves into the sea, she says, I realise now who I always was. Now, this idea of an afterlife where your individuality becomes dissolved into a greater oneness, a greater unity, is a loss of individual self, but it's also a discovery that the individual self that you've carried with you has been the cause of your suffering and your struggling. And this is an idea that we're going to see more of when we look at Buddhism next week. But in Hinduism, this single soul has stayed together, and it is the one thing that's been reincarnated each time. And at death, when you achieve moksha, at enlightenment, when you've been released from samsara, it gets released back into Brahman, that oneness of energy, of the essence of life from which it came. I think that's quite a beautiful thing. So now we can look at how this oneness, this unity of one God has become this polytheistic religion that has all these different gods. There is only one substance, which is Brahman. This is energy. This is life. But life has lots of different aspects to it. So the first of these aspects to think about is creation. Brahma is the name that's given to the creative element of Brahman. So Brahma is credited with the creation of the universe, with the creation of life, with the incarnation of life into other things. Vishnu is the second element of existence. Once something has been created, Vishnu is that power, that part of Brahman, which sustains it, which maintains it, which continues its existence until Shiva is the god of destruction. Now Shiva can be seen as quite a scary looking god. Is fire, is destruction. It looks like anger and fear, but actually Shiva is a beautiful thing, because without destruction, without death, we can't get rebirth, we can't get new life. Without winter, we can't have springtime. And that is the point, that not that there are three separate gods. These three gods are called the Trimurti. Brahman is existence. Existence itself, the essence of life, and there are three elements of that can be focused on separately, even though they are elements or aspects of one thing. So we get this tripartite theory of God, where God is seen separately as creation, as maintenance, and as destruction. Now each of these separate gods has lots of different aspects. Creation has lots of different ways of being in the world, as does being sustained. That can happen in lots of different ways, and there are lots of different needs for being sustained, and there are lots of different needs for destruction, for endings, for rebirths. So each of these three main gods, the Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, each have hundreds, thousands, millions of avatars. There are over 330 million different gods worshipped in Hinduism, and more can be created all the time, because all living things, look down at the bottom of this diagram, everything that lives has Atman, everything that lives has an individual soul, and that will be reborn. So that little element of the essence of life that exists within every living thing comes from Brahman, and so has within it some element of creation and sustaining and destruction. And so Hindus can worship whatever they want to worship. They can worship gods that help them with every different aspect of life depending on their individual needs. That means that you can tailor make your own set of deities to help you consider your needs, where actually all you're doing is focusing on certain areas and certain aspects or features of one single essential nature of God, which is the essence of life, which is Brahman. This idea that every living thing has got a bit of God in it, right? That's called animism, the recognition of objects, of beings that are worthy of worship because they have elements of the divine within them. So some people would say that Hinduism is a polytheistic religion, and they're not incorrect to say that. However, you could also say that it is a type of monotheism that has a polytheistic slant to it. So you could say that Hinduism is a very monotheistic religion, but that it has got a cultural interpretation of polytheism because people have different needs depending on the culture and the climate and the way that they need to live and the things that they need to focus on. So, to recap the final bit, this is a person, and within that person, which could be you or me or a god or goddess or a child, a plant, an animal, within every living thing there is an element of the divine, and the divine has got an infinitude of features. Every feature of every living thing is a feature of God. Largely these can be grouped together into those which are creative forces, those which are forces of sustaining, and those which are forces of destruction, and considered all as one, that creation, maintaining, and destruction all together is Brahman, and that is the oneness or absolute that is God in Hinduism. I hope that you've enjoyed that. Here's your homework. When you make statements about God, when you say, I believe in God, or I don't believe in God, or I think that there's a God, or you're a fool for thinking there's a God, what actually are you talking about? When you use this word God, what do you really mean? So please discuss in the comments.
I think Piers Robin thinks they're naughty.
No.
Bye. They do your homework. Bye. Yeah, I'll be really good all the day. So let's go on to the next bit.
Today I want to add a small postscript to my video. Thank you so much for all of the views that I've had on my first episode. I'm really touched and I'm really impressed, and I'm hoping to make loads more. One of the things I need, as you may have noticed, is some new equipment. So if you want to support that and have better quality content, then go to my channel and go to the channel art banner at the top, and there's a Patreon link, and if you make a Patreon account you can sponsor me for as little as $1 a month, and every dollar will help me try and buy. I need a new microphone is my first job, and then I will need a new computer, but that's long term. Also, there's a new series of videos coming where I will be giving GCSE revision help for GCSE classes, kids who are in year 11 now. That will be for OCR and for EdXL, so they should be coming out alongside these videos, hopefully one a week, but keep checking back in. My videos should be scheduled to come every Thursday. They'll go live at 9:30 in British Standard Time. The rest of this series I'm going to go through. Next is Buddhism, and then Sikhism, and then after that I'm going to go into the Abrahamic religions, so that's Judaism, then Christianity, and then Islam. And then the next series I'm planning is arguments for and against the existence of God, which should be really fun. So thank you, and click on the subscribe button, because the more subscribers I have, the better it makes me feel about my life. So Patreon and subscribe, and I'll see you every Thursday.